My husband always told me he was saving for retirement. One day, I found a storage unit key in his suit pocket. Curious, I went to check. Inside were expensive gifts, designer clothes, and a second wedding dress. Heart racing, I checked the rental agreement. It was signed with his mistress's name. That night, I served him a fancy dinner and whispered, "Tell me about your other wife." He choked on his wine. "I'm 52. My husband, let's call him Jeff, is 55. We were married for 27 years. 2 adult kids. Lived in Portland, Oregon, in a house we bought right after the birth of our first. We were the couple everyone looked up to. I thought so too. We didn't fight much. We talked things through. We weren't flashy, but I believed we were solid. I believed we were planning for the same future. I was wrong. Jeff always talked about money. Not in a greedy way. More like, focused. He told me we needed to live below our means. That we were saving for retirement. He'd say things like, "Let's skip the anniversary trip this year, put it toward the house. Don't get a new car yet. Let's wait another year. We'll travel once we're free of bills. Later. When we retire." So I trusted him. I didn't question it. I figured he was being responsible. I did my part. I worked part-time at a local bookstore, kept our home in order, took care of the kids, the meals, the bills he didn't manage. I asked now and then about our finances, but he always said, "We're in good shape. Trust me." For over a decade, I believed him. About 3 years ago, he started changing. Nothing huge. Just little cracks. He started working late more often. At first it was once or twice a month. Then it became once or twice a week. He started going to the gym. Said he wanted to feel younger. Bought cologne I'd never seen before. New shirts. Then designer shoes. When I said something, he just laughed and said, "Don't I deserve to feel good too?" He started locking his phone. Changed his passwords. Always kept it face down. I asked if something was going on. He said I was imagining things. That I was insecure. That he was just trying to better himself. So I let it go. I didn't want to be the nagging wife. I trusted him. One night, I was folding laundry. I was going through the pockets of his suit jacket before sending it to the dry cleaners when I found a key. Not a house key. Not a car key. It had a plastic orange tag with U-Store NW, Unit 319, scribbled on it in black ink. I stared at it for a long time. I knew every key he had. This wasn't one of them. My stomach dropped. I didn't know why yet, but I felt something was off. I put the key back, acted normal, and waited. The next morning, after he left for work, I took the key and drove to the storage facility. It was a gray, ugly building near the industrial part of town. I walked in, trying to look casual. Told the front desk woman I was grabbing something for my husband. She asked if I had a key. I nodded. She let me in. Unit 319 was halfway down a long row of identical doors. I opened it. I'll never forget what I saw. The first thing that hit me was the smell. Expensive perfume. Like walking into a Nordstrom fragrance section. Inside were 2 clothing racks filled with high-end women's clothes. Not just casual clothes. Cocktail dresses, lingerie, fur jackets. Stuff I had never seen in my life. Boxes of brand new heels. Names I didn't recognize at the time but looked up later, Christian Louboutin, Jimmy Choo. Thousands of dollars, easily. A vanity table set up in the corner. Makeup. Jewelry. Skincare products. Then my eyes landed on the far wall. There it was. Hanging inside a clear plastic garment bag. A wedding dress. White. Lacy. Beaded. Brand new. I stood there, staring at it. Frozen. I forced myself to keep looking. There was a file box tucked in the corner, labeled legal/receipts. Inside were receipts for flights, fancy restaurants, spas, and boutique hotels. There were love notes, handwritten. Letters. One said, "Can't wait to be Mrs. Fields." Another had lipstick marks. I pulled out the rental agreement for the unit. It wasn't under Jeff's name. It was signed by Rachel M. Fields. That was the moment I stopped breathing. I drove home shaking. I didn't confront him right away. I needed a plan. I needed to hear it from him. I wanted to watch him lie to me one more time. That night, I made steak. Mashed potatoes. Opened his favorite red wine. He came home, kissed my cheek, asked how my day was. I said it was quiet. We ate. He laughed. Told me about work. Halfway through dinner, I leaned in. Tell me about Rachel Fields. He froze. Wine glass halfway to his lips. What? The storage unit. The wedding dress. The clothes. The plane tickets. Rachel M. Fields. Tell me who she is. He dropped the wine glass. It shattered on the floor. He didn't say a word. That night was hours of him lying, then finally admitting. He met Rachel at work. She was a client. They had been seeing each other for 2 years. She thought we were divorced. He told her we were living together for financial reasons. He said she didn't ask many questions. They were planning a wedding in August. She had no idea I even existed until a few months before, and by then, he convinced her that I was crazy, obsessive, and couldn't move on. He bought her the wedding dress. Had everything hidden away. Told me he was working late when he was at her apartment or taking her on trips. He used our retirement money. Said he'd make it back later. I couldn't even speak. I kicked him out that night. Packed a bag for him. Threw it on the porch. He cried. Literally cried. Said he was confused. That he still loved me. That Rachel meant nothing even though they were about to get married. He begged me not to tell our kids. Not to tell anyone. I told him to get out. After I kicked Jeff out, the house felt hollow. I sat alone at the kitchen table for hours, staring at the half-drunk wine glass he left behind. It still had the imprint of his lips on the rim. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept replaying every conversation, every missed dinner, every time he said I love you. He didn't just cheat. He built a second life. A whole second reality. And he was ready to walk down the aisle again like nothing ever happened. I didn't know what Rachel looked like. But I had her name. I looked her up on Facebook. Nothing. Then LinkedIn. There she was. Marketing director at a local tech company. She looked younger than I thought. Maybe 33, 34. Blonde. Smiling. Wearing a green dress I found in the storage unit. I stared at that profile for a long time. Then I messaged her. Hi Rachel, you don't know me, but I'm Jeff's wife. I think we need to talk. She didn't reply for 2 days. Then one word. What? I sent pictures. The wedding dress. The inside of the unit. My marriage license. A photo of me and Jeff on our wedding day. Then she asked to meet. We met at a coffee shop in downtown Portland. Neutral ground. She was even prettier in person. Tall. Confident. But her face cracked the second she sat down across from me. He told me you were dead. Dead. That was the twist I wasn't ready for. Apparently, he told her I'd died from cancer 6 years ago. Showed her fake obituaries. Claimed the house was in probate and that he was living there temporarily until the estate cleared. He built this entire lie from the ground up. Rachel broke down crying. Right there at the table. She said she met him during a work event. They started seeing each other a few months later. He was charming. Attentive. Talked about his grief like it was fresh. He wore a widower mask for years. He cried to her about losing me. And she believed him. She showed me messages. Photos. Expensive trips I never took. Jewelry I never wore. A necklace from Tiffany's he claimed belonged to his mother, but he actually bought it for Rachel on their first anniversary. He told her he was ready to love again. That she helped him feel alive. She had no clue. When she asked if I'd really died, I leaned in and whispered, I was dead to him the day he brought you into his life. She started sobbing again. Rachel cut him off that night. Blocked him. Deleted everything. But Jeff didn't stay quiet. He showed up at the house 2 days later. Banging on the door. I didn't answer. He stood outside yelling for over 30 minutes. You ruined everything. We could have fixed this. Rachel was my fresh start. That's when I realized something, he never felt guilty. Not really. He wasn't sorry he hurt me. He was sorry he got caught. A week later, I went through our old tax records. Something wasn't sitting right. We had a shared retirement account. That was all I knew about. But some paperwork mentioned a second account, one I'd never seen. I called the bank. After a lot of back and forth, I got access. It was under his name only. Over $92,000 sitting in a discretionary spending investment fund. Hidden from me. Deposits started 5 years ago. Around the same time he told me we had to cut back. While I was canceling dental cleanings and reusing teabags, he was feeding cash into a private fund to finance his fantasy life. He used some of that to pay for Rachel's ring. Yes, there was a ring. She returned it to me in a little blue velvet box. The same box he once used to give me earrings for our 10th anniversary. We hadn't told our kids yet. Our daughter called me out of the blue that week. Said Dad had asked if she'd come to brunch with him and someone special. I froze. She's 25. Fierce, smart, and doesn't take crap from anyone. I told her everything. At first, silence. Then a long exhale. He wanted me to meet his fiancée. The one he got engaged to while still married to you. She was calm. Too calm. Then she said, "I'm done with him." She hung up. I filed for divorce the next day. When Jeff got the papers, he texted me, "So this is how you want to end 27 years? Over one mistake? One mistake?" I screenshotted that text. I'm printing it for court. His lawyer reached out. Tried to get me to settle quietly. Offered the house, said he'd waive spousal support if I just moved on. I told them I wasn't moving anywhere. Something changed. A week ago, I got a call from Rachel. She was crying. Again. I don't know how to tell you this. But I think I'm pregnant. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. She said she hadn't seen him, hadn't told him yet. She wasn't sure what to do. She felt sick and scared. Said she felt like she was carrying the child of a ghost. She asked if I hated her. I didn't answer right away. Because honestly, I didn't know. After Rachel told me about the pregnancy, I didn't know what to feel. I should have hated her. Maybe I did. But she was crying. She was used. Lied to. Just like me. She thought she was starting a new life. Instead, she was tangled in the ruins of mine. She said she wasn't ready to decide. She just needed to talk to someone who understood. That's how twisted it had all become, his wife and his mistress, now trauma bonding over the same man. But then she dropped another bomb. She asked me something I wasn't prepared for. Did Jeff ever change his life insurance? I blinked. No. Why? Rachel said she remembered him mentioning it during dinner once, how she'd be taken care of if anything happened to him. She thought he was just being sweet. But now it haunted her. I logged into our old joint insurance portal. I still had the credentials. It took some digging, but I found it. There were 2 policies. Mine. The original one. I was listed as the beneficiary. And then, another one. Opened 2 years ago. Same company. But different policy number. Higher value. And the beneficiary? Rachel M. Fields. My hand shook on the mouse. I confronted him. Not in person, I was done giving him the satisfaction. I texted him, "You planned a whole new life. With a backup plan if you died. You added her to your life insurance. Did you think I'd never find out?" He read it. No reply. Then 2 hours later, "You're spying now? How paranoid are you?" No apology. No explanation. Just gaslighting. The next day, he showed up at my door. This time in a suit. With a man standing beside him. A lawyer. They had papers. Jeff was trying to file for a legal separation, not divorce. He claimed it was less messy, said he needed time to get things in order. His lawyer handed me a packet and said, "This is the cleanest way forward." I looked at Jeff. "You already planned another wedding. You bought another woman a ring. What's left to separate?" He said nothing. His eyes looked empty. Cold. I laughed. Right there in his face. "You're not getting a clean exit. You buried a marriage and built a lie on top of it. I'm digging it all up." I slammed the door. My son, 27, lives in Chicago. I hadn't told him everything yet. But word spreads. He called the next day. "Why did Dad text me saying you're ruining his life with lies?" I sighed. We talked for 2 hours. I told him everything. He didn't get mad right away. He just got quiet. He said you were sick last year. That you were losing it. That you were making up stories. I felt like I was going to throw up. Jeff had been planting seeds. Even with our kids. trying to paint me as mentally unstable. The bitter, aging wife who couldn't let go. Mom, my son said, I'm flying in this weekend. We're fixing this. 2 nights later, Rachel called me again. Her voice was flat. No crying this time. I saw him today. I was silent. He came to my work. Said he wanted to talk about the baby. I told him I hadn't decided yet. Then he said something that scared me. He said, don't make this harder than it has to be. You know I always land on my feet. You should be smart about this. She was shaking. I could hear it. I told her to document everything. Save texts. Emails. Go to HR, make a report. You think he'd hurt me? I paused. I didn't used to. But now. I'm not sure. I hadn't told anyone this part yet. But now it matters. After Jeff moved out, I noticed weird things. Lights left on when I knew I turned them off. My email logged in from another location. My dog acting nervous in certain rooms. I called a locksmith. Had the house rekeyed. Then I called a friend of my son's, works in tech security. He came by with some equipment. We found 2 tiny hidden cameras. One in the living room vent. One near the front door. Both battery powered. Motion activated. And both had transmit capabilities. I nearly collapsed. Jeff had planted them. Watching me. Listening. Not even hiding it anymore. The next day, I went to the police. Filed a report. Showed them everything. They said it would take time to process, but they'd investigate. I gave them the storage unit photos, the emails, the insurance policy, and now, the cameras. A detective told me, this is no longer just infidelity. This could be harassment. Maybe worse. I asked if I should be afraid. He said, I wouldn't leave the doors unlocked. A few weeks after we found the cameras, the police called. They wanted to bring Jeff in for questioning. I didn't ask for details. I just handed them everything. The footage. The insurance docs. The printed texts. Rachel even gave a statement. Said she was afraid. Said he made veiled threats. I thought it might be over. I was wrong. It was our daughter's engagement party. She begged me to still come. Said she'd keep Jeff off the guest list. That she wanted her mom there, not her father's chaos. I agreed. The venue was a small winery outside of Portland. Private. Beautiful. I wore a green dress. The first dress I'd bought for myself in years. Rachel helped me pick it out. Yeah, we were still talking. Not friends, exactly. But, something like allies. Everything was going fine. Until he walked in. Jeff. Uninvited. Wearing a suit. Alone. No lawyer. No Rachel. No shame. My daughter froze. Her fiancé looked ready to throw him out. But I stopped them. I wanted this. I walked across the room. Quiet. Calm. Everyone watched. He smiled like nothing had happened. You look beautiful, he said. I slapped him. Not hard. Just enough. Enough to break something in the air. Gasps. Chair scraping. Someone dropped a glass. You lied to all of us, I said. To me. To your children. To that woman you promised a ring to. You don't love anyone but yourself. He glanced around, trying to laugh it off. You're causing a scene. No. You caused it the day you told your mistress I was dead. That shut him up. I didn't stop. 2 wedding dresses. 2 life insurance policies. 2 families. You built a fantasy. Then watched us all burn in it. He tried to speak. Then Rachel walked in. She wasn't supposed to be there. She told me she couldn't face him again. But she came. Because I told her he might try something. And she had her own truth to say. She walked straight up to him. Everyone still frozen. I'm not pregnant. Jeff blinked. What? I was. I'm not anymore. He reached for her hand. She pulled back. And I know about the 3rd woman. Silence. She turned to me. Then back to him. Her name is Angie. Works at the law firm across from yours. She came to my apartment 2 days ago. Said you'd been seeing her for a year. Now even the room started reacting. Whispers. Judging stares. He looked trapped. Like an animal backed into a corner. That's not true, he said, too fast. Rachel pulled out her phone. Showed the messages. She's got your face saved as my forever. You're not even original. He looked at me. Please, he said. We can talk about this. Privately. I said nothing. He looked at Rachel. She turned away. He turned to our daughter. Sweetheart, don't, she said. You're not my father anymore. He looked stunned. Like he truly didn't think it would come to this. You don't understand, he said. I didn't mean for this to happen, you meant every step of it, I cut in. You just didn't think we'd ever find each other. He left. No fight. No final word. Just walked out alone. The party never really recovered. My daughter apologized 100 times. I told her it wasn't her fault. None of this was. Rachel stayed a few minutes longer. Then left. I hugged her before she did. I'm sorry you lost the baby, I whispered. I didn't, she said. I chose to let it go. I understood. Some things, you let go to save yourself. The divorce was finalized shortly after. I kept the house. Got a portion of the secret account. The judge was not kind to Jeff. He resigned from his firm before they could fire him. I haven't seen him since. Our daughter didn't invite him to her wedding. Our son changed his last name. Rachel moved to California. We still check in sometimes. She says she's dating again. Slowly. Carefully. I haven't dated. Not yet. Maybe never. I've been planting vegetables in the backyard. Reading in the sun. Cooking for no one but myself. It feels strange. But also, quiet. Honest. There are moments when I feel like I wasted 27 years. Then I remind myself, I didn't waste them. He did. I loved fully. I was loyal. I gave everything I had. He's the one who threw it all away. And what did he end up with? Nothing. No wife. No mistress. No kids. Just a ring in a box and a closet full of lies. I still lock the doors at night. But I don't live in fear anymore. I live in truth. And that's more than he'll ever have.